Hey guys, how are you? I got a haircut, but I'm not sure if I like it. I got it in Mexico. So I just got back from ministering in San Diego um and in Mexico. So that was a lot, but I met a lot of divine appointments and I picked up a lot of lost sheep. So it's really exciting to meet people of my tribe and but it's also I think realizing like some of the things that I've been through, especially when you meet a lot of people, you encounter people who are safe or unsafe, and you also meet people who are just wounded. And so, what do wounded people do? They hurt people because of what? Self protection. So, there was a guy that started to accuse me. He was very nice, but when I kind of said, "Hey, look, I think that you're not really what I'm looking for in a marriage partner," so when I rejected him, he basically started to accuse me of being a liar, that I wasn't hearing from God, that that I was lying and that like what's so wrong about having questions and stuff. But when people ask questions and they're really there to spite you, to play devil's advocate, and their intention isn't to understand, their intention is to attack and to manipulate and to bully you. So I can smell that from, like, miles away, so I really felt that, and, I really couldn't handle it anymore because even as I felt my heart was starting to get angry and, like, I was feeling like I was yelling, and I was like, "I can't take this anymore because he's just bullying me." I hung up the phone because I was like, my heart can't take it anymore, and then he texted me like, like, you're so childish, like, grow up." And I was like, wait a minute, that's what a narcissist was saying. And I have never been in a friendship or a relationship with a narcissist, I don't think. My ex was very controlling, but I'm still healing from a lot of things that I think, especially growing up with emotionally immature parents, you deal with that, right? So I actually created a group on Facebook. It's called Safe People. So if you like to join, I'm gonna include the link in right here. Um, so I basically talk about how my mother was emotionally unsafe. She would yell and she would have temper tantrums. She got mad at my dad, right, for cheating on her, and because of that, it was very caustic and toxic at home. It was a lot of yelling, and she would get mad at us, but I knew that we weren't the reason for it, but I always just felt this fear like, "Oh, I'm pissing her off, I'm the reason, it's my fault," and, because of that, I think that, um, I also ended up in friendships where, like, sometimes I felt unsafe emotionally, and I became a people pleaser, and I would try to just make people happy, I put on a smile at church, and, people call me this cheerful person, but deep down, like, I wasn't able to express anger or sadness, and I had to be sad alone, like, I couldn't really like, show my sadness in front of people. So I would run away to be alone, and I was very isolated because of that. So even though I had a lot of friends on the outside, on the inside, I was actually, like, struggling and, really unable to express that. And, like, even now, I notice, like, oh, when I'm struggling, it's like a part of me doesn't want to confront that with that person because I don't feel safe, especially not with the bully, not with someone who is accusing me of being a liar. So, um, so growing up, my mom would nag at me, she would criticize me. Um, like she showed love in different ways, but it wasn't the ways that I really needed. I really needed affirmation, I needed love, I needed to feel accepted, but I didn't feel that at home. So, of course, I would find it in friends, right? And, then my dad was physically absent, emotionally absent. Um, so with my ex, I ended up in a relationship where he was very controlling, and, let me put it let me, hold on. So, like, the Lord basically has been bringing me to people or, like, helping me to confront any fear of confrontation. So there are times where it's like I need to tell my truth about something to someone, and like my heart would feel this fear, like, oh my God, like, how are they going to react? And it's easy to do that when I was on the journey, like, especially on the road ministering. It's like, these are people you don't see that often. You're not like, I might just see them and never see them again. When I was a minister on the road for 2 years, it's like, okay, there are people like watching TV next door and it's late, so let me confront them. It's easy to, like, it's hard to confront them too, still. But when you do confront them, they're not like close friends. They're not people that like live in your city, right? So even if you confront them, it's not like they're gonna chase after you and like know where you live and stuff like that. But with people that you know and you have known for years or like they're best friends and you're noticing things that, hey, like bothers you or they've said things to hurt you, not intentionally. When you confront those kind of people, it's harder. When you confront family, it's harder because essentially it's like they're gonna be in your life, right? Um, so my pattern in the past was to like ignore things. So like ignore things that would bother me or ignore things that hurt me. So I would be like, okay, well, let me just not confront them. Let me just not talk about it. So I actually had a dream where like there were these people and I just felt like they didn't want to talk to me and I felt alone in the dream and um sometimes it's very hard for me to when I'm struggling to open up to people and to tell them how I feel. Um like in a weird way, like sometimes I find that very uncomfortable and I just want to run away and like do something that I like to ignore the fact that I'm not feeling well. So avoidance, right? And I think that I'm at a point in my life where God has been in the last year been working out any issues that I have having to do with relationships. Like a fear, any fear of confrontation, even those who bully you or like make you feel bad or try to attack you, like learning to approach and confront people like that is so important because if you just know how to confront people who are safe, then you're not like you don't have the skill set, right, to confront that spirit of fear, that spirit of intimidation in people. And you're gonna face people like that everywhere you go, especially the higher that you go, um, the more you're gonna experience people like that. So for me in ministry, it's like I meet people all the time and it's like they're one way and then the next they're another and you just don't know how people are. You can't predict it. You don't know like how safe they really are. And it's hurtful and it's but you almost have to like detach yourself a little bit. But at the same time, like I realize that part of life is that you have to feel your feelings. So however you feel, that is valid and you have to express that to directly to that person. You know, I think a lot of times I think I remember this pastor like killed himself because he was depressed. Well, why did he kill himself? Because he probably did not express how he actually felt with people in his ministry or in his church. Pastors have feelings and pastors can be hurt. And I think that what we don't understand a lot of times in church and ministry is that it's okay for a pastor to be pissed off with you, dude. Like If you piss him off, like, he should be able to say, "Hey, I'm pissed off because you did this." There shouldn't be this, like, false humility of, like, "Oh, I need to be patient, and I'm not loving because, you know, if I'm mad, then I'm being a hypocrite." No, like, God put anger in our hearts for a reason. Like, emotions of anger are valid. And what happens in the church is that we don't validate those emotions. We don't validate sadness. We don't validate anger. We don't validate, "Oh, my boundaries have been crossed and I've been hurt by this person." We What we teach people is, "Hey, just forgive and forget." And that, my friend, is not healthy because it says to you that your emotions aren't valid, that you should allow people to destroy your boundaries, to hurt you. It's okay for them to step on you. My friends, it's not okay to step on you. It's not okay for people to abuse you. God didn't come on this earth, get beaten up, and then have us like dishonor ourselves and allow people to abuse us. Like, He gave us a mouth so that we can speak up about it. And there's just such a contradicting theory in church that says, like, "Oh, well, you should have long suffering." And it's like we don't listen to our hearts anymore because we are listening to a specific Bible verse, and we're listening to a specific um and it's false guilt. It really is false guilt. When this guy was bullying me and saying like I'm a liar and I'm lying about hearing God and all this stuff, um and he's like, "Oh, you say you love God, but, like, you're getting mad." See, that's false guilt because why can't I get mad? Just because I love God doesn't mean I don't have emotions, you know? And it's like, I feel like we think that, like, having no emotions, being kind, being patient is godly. It's not. Why would you be patient if someone is abusing you? Why would you allow someone to step on you, and call that godly? Like, God didn't look at those people, um, being enslaved by the Egyptians and say, "Oh, well, I have no compassion. I'm not angry because my people are getting abused." And, I'm gonna cry. And I feel like we do that to ourselves, like, especially people who grew up in church. It's like, you think it's okay to be abused. You think that's love, you think that's kindness, you think um, that, like, you have to be long-suffering, and God's like, "No, I didn't create my people to be abused." And I talked about the story about with, my my ex-best friend. She, like, dated my, ex after I dumped him and behind my back, and she didn't tell me. And 5 years later, I confronted her because, like, again, growing up at the church, it's religious. It's a religious spirit, right? Telling you, like, "Hey, like, you're supposed to be forgiving, you're supposed to be forgetful, you're supposed to be kind and patient, and you're supposed to, do all this." And, like, what? You neglect your own emotions of any boundaries that you may have as a human being, and you allow people to step on you, you allow people to use you. And so in that instance in high school, like, she when I confronted her and I felt so much fear in my heart, she actually said that I thought that you were a forgiving and forgetful person, that you would forgive and forget. And I realized, like, wow, like, that's how people see me, that I'm someone that um will forgive and forget and, like, not really care. But that what is that saying to me? Like, that's just saying that um I don't honor myself, right? And um so, like, that pattern really started, because I grew up in a home where it was like, okay, my mom's having a drama fit, she's having a temper tantrum. So how can I accommodate for that? Okay, let me shut down my own emotions because I'm scared, and I don't feel safe. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna self-protect, and I'm gonna shut down my heart so that I don't feel anything. So I numb my emotions of fear or anger or sadness. And I allow space for my mother to have her emotions. And so what I did was I neglected and abandoned my own emotions to take care of her emotions, which again is codependency. And um so then growing up it was like, okay, if I was hurt, if someone overstepped their boundaries, and if someone did something to hurt me, I would think, well, my emotions are not valid. And what do I need to do is that I need to create space for their emotions. I need to create space for um what they want, right? So I ended up in a relationship where my ex was controlling and he was unsafe, and um he would ghost like every 2 to 3 days and not talk to me. And so I thought, well, that's normal because he said that he needs space, you know? And so with especially with guys, right? Like, um, I had very unhealthy relationships with men because it was like, okay, well, here's me, and then here's I like disappearance, like basically, ghosting. And so then I found when guys did wanna keep in touch, I felt strange about it. I was like, "What's wrong with you?" And, so essentially what I'm saying is I had a lot of fear in my relationships, a lot of fear, of abandonment, a lot of fear of rejection. And so those were things that got like really started to pull out of me through ministry actually. So I was on the road for like 2 years, and like every type of rejection that you could think of I faced. Like God would tell me, "Okay, ask this person to help you out financially," right? And so it was a mere stranger, and I had to like I was in a foreign country with like my suitcase, and like if I didn't open my mouth and ask, I would probably end up on the streets. So it was that severe where it's like I literally had to open my mouth and ask a stranger for finances, for a donation. And it's like I faced every kind of rejection and judgment that you can think of in doing ministry, in being rejected by religious spirited people who questioned, what church I was with, or what church that I belonged to, or who I went with. So essentially they did not think that Jesus was enough to qualify someone, that his blood wasn't enough to put an anointing in a woman by herself, right? And so, um, I want to lie down. Mm. So, so like, so essentially, like, that's pretty much what I went through. And I think part of overcoming a lot of these issues of like creating space for your emotions. And I think a lot of Christians are very spiritual, but not in touch with their emotions. They're not in touch with like, how do I feel? And am I angry? Am I sad? Like, how do I feel about this issue? We put this blanket statement over our lives like, oh no, praise the Lord, just be grateful. And that's even Buddhism. Like, I minister to this guy who's a Buddhist, and he's like, one second he's like angry, he's yelling, and the next he's like, no, I need to be filled with gratitude. I have seen people in yoga literally like, shh, like, and they're so angry and they're trying to like keep the peace, they're trying to meditate, but what they actually need to do is say to that person that they're mad at what they feel. So they actually need to express themselves directly to that person instead of trying to be peaceful, right? And that's like what our society teaches, like, oh, just control your emotions. No, don't control your emotions. Express it in the church, but it's like all over the world. We don't validate our emotions, and it's so unhealthy. That's why there's so many people in therapy, because we don't say exactly what we mean to say to that person. If we just directly say to that person how we feel, then we wouldn't be like struggling with our emotions. We wouldn't be like, oh, and so what is emotional hiding? Emotional hiding is when you hide how you feel from a person, right? And then um like, it's so easy to do that. I've done that a lot in my life, but now, like, I don't wanna do that anymore. I wanna be present, I wanna be loved for who I am, and I want to be in emotionally healthy relationships. And, part of that for me has been coming out of hiding, admitting that, "Hey, something that someone has done has hurt me," then confronting them about it, right? And I never thought, right now, like, that I would have ever met, like, a guy who would accuse me of being a liar, and, like, just, like, he's just, like, a devil's advocate, and he's, like, saying all this stuff. And, like, I think a lot of us try to control our emotions. We try to just, like, be like, "Okay, well, when I say this, I need to sound this way. I need to be controlled. I need to be nice." Well, what about just, like, being honest about how you feel without trying to manipulate and control your emotions? It's like, I think a lot of times we want to. That's why I love reality shows, because they're actually honest. Yes, they are pulling each other's hair out, but, like, they're being honest, like, they're being angry, they're being sad, but they're being honest, and I feel like we lack that so much, like, especially, like, I don't know about you, but, like, Asian families, oh my gosh. But for my mom, it's just, like, anger, 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 and then there's no, like, it's like a lot of times she's angry, like, she's mad at me, but she's actually not mad at me. She's mad at some other issues that she doesn't wanna talk about. And, I think that when we start to be present and we start to say, "Hey, God, I wanna be present, I wanna be honest with people about how I feel," then we don't have to it doesn't have to come out in other ways. It doesn't have to come out through addiction or porn or masturbation or whatever, or alcohol or drugs, like, then we can be in emotionally safe relationships. And so, God, I just pray today that, God, you would help us to confront those people we need to talk to or confront. I just pray you give us courage to be present and to not hide anymore. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, I just hear the Lord say, "You're enough, you're not lacking, and I love you very much. Your emotions are valid, your emotions are valuable. Um, like, tell people how you feel. I love you very much, and I'm for you and not against you. You're valuable to me. You're worthy of love. You're worthy of affection. You're valuable. You're worthy of kindness, and you are safe. Like, don't be afraid of love." And so I feel like part of the process of coming out of hiding is that you will encounter people that will piss you off. You will encounter um like your moods. You will encounter being upset. Like, I feel like people think that, oh, I'm coming out of hiding, like, everyone's just gonna love me, and I'm not gonna have to be upset. I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna have to, like, have like, to have emotions, but a part of coming out of hiding is that you do, like, express yourself and you are, emotionally open, but that means that you express how you feel honestly to the people that God brings your way. And so it's not about perfection. Like, I think we're just so used to, like, it has to be neat and perfect and it has to be like um packaged nicely, but like what God is doing in relationships right now is not neat and perfect. And if it's not neat and perfect, be okay with it. Be okay with your mood swings. Be okay with how you feel. Be okay with being angry. Be okay with being sad and like embrace that. Like, don't think of that as like, oh, you're manic, you're dramatic, you're emotional. No, like, I have suppressed my emotions my whole life. I get to be emotional. I get to be dramatic because I never got to, right? So I think that I was always like jealous of people who could be angry or like express themselves like um especially like some of the African American women I grew up with. I was like, "Oh, I'm so jealous cuz like they can be sassy and they can be like honest." Well, not everyone, obviously. It's not a racial thing, but for me, like some of the women, African American women that I saw, like they were very expressive, and I was like, "Oh, I want to be angry like that. Like, how come I can't be angry like that?" And so now it's like a lot of that anger is coming out when people piss me off, and I'm like, "Whoa, I was not in touch with that part of who I was and my emotions. Like, I didn't allow myself to be angry because I thought that people who were angry made others feel guilty about that anger. So, like, for my mom, she would get mad at me, she would yell at me, and I feel like it's my fault. So, because of that, I didn't want to be angry at anyone else, because I didn't want them to feel bad about my anger, right? But now realizing that, it's like I'm realizing, like, oh, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to express how you feel. If that person feels bad about it, explain to them, hey, it's not your fault. Like, this is just how I feel about what you said or did. And I can have grace and forgiveness for you, right? But I think a lot of people don't grow up in emotionally safe homes where there is grace and there is forgiveness. It's basically like performance. Like, okay, if you're nice to me or if you are always in a good mood, then you know you're a good kid. But if you're in a bad mood, that's being a bad kid. But there's a reason that people are in bad moods and we don't validate that. We don't find worth in it. And it's like, no, like if I'm in a bad mood, let me be in a bad mood. Let's talk about why I'm in a bad mood. Don't try to control my mood or tell me or try to fix it. If I'm complaining about something or someone, just say, "Hey, that's a sucky situation, that sucks," and then validate that emotion and then encourage me. Like, don't try to, like, be like, "Oh, well," and I feel like a lot of people guys do this. Guys do this all the time. "Well, like, where did you meet this person?" Like, it's almost to blame that person, um, and say, well, then maybe you shouldn't have met that person because if you hadn't met that person, you wouldn't be in this situation. Well, no, life isn't like that. You can't predict how people are. You just need to go through it and live life in freedom. Like, if you're hurt, you're hurt. It's not because of your fault. It's not your fault that you're hurt. You're hurt because it's life. Pain is normal and almost necessary in our life. You're not going to experience it in heaven, but it's here. And like, I think a lot of people are not okay with you hurting, and so they either try to fix it or they try to blame you. And it's just like, no, like, let me be hurt and let me feel the pain and don't try to fix it. So that is all. God bless you. Thanks for watching. I pray that this video helped you, and like, if you have ever just experienced this yourself, um, like, comment below or message me. I would love to hear from you, and, I love you guys. I love you guys very much. God bless you. Bye. If you'd like to sow a seed to this ministry, you can do so on my website, rebekkalien.com. Love you. Bye.